Today's lecture on optics is going to be looking at and studying light. We're going to focus on reflection and refraction. We're going to look at terms and topics such as specular reflection and diffuse reflection. It will make sense as to how and why these three individuals can see this space. So what is optics? Well, optics is the study of light. A light ray is an imaginary line that represents a thin beam of light. That we're going to be using these lines here as talking about the light rays. So we say that a light ray travels in straight lines as they reflect off of an object and travel to our eyes. And the photoreceptors in your eye then make sense of the light, color, and for your cones and intensity in the rods, and communicate to you what it is that you're seeing. Specular reflection. A ray of light that strikes a shiny object, like a mirror or polished steel, creates a single reflected ray. And this is what we're seeing in this picture here. Each ray of light bounces off in a single direction. Images are produced in polished surfaces too, so it's not just mirrors that we're looking at. If a surface has a perfect specular reflection, the surface of the object will be invisible. In other words, we wouldn't be able to see its surface itself. Diffuse reflection. Diffuse reflection occurs when a light is incident on a rough surface. In other words, incoming light is then scattered in many different directions as it reflects. A ray of light that strikes a non-shiny surface or an opaque object, like a wooden board or even a desk in your classroom, scatters into many directions. This is caused by the roughness of a surface. When you look at a diffuse reflecting surface, you see the surface itself. Some basic optical devices that we'll be looking at using in here. Lenses. A converging lens, also called a convex lens, bends light so that it comes to a single point. A diverging lens, called a concave lens, bends light so it spreads apart. A mirror reflects light and allows you to see yourself. A prism can both bend and or reflect light. Some examples of optical devices are telescopes, cameras, supermarket laser scanners, and even diamonds. If we look at what's taking place in the picture here, we can see that a converging lens, incoming light is going to be then refracted into one focal point. And a diverging lens, lens is going to allow light through, is going to spread the light out on the other side after being transmitted. A mirror is going to reflect light directly, and we call this will be an example of specular reflection here. Then we'll look at a prism. A prism does both. It actually both reflects and refracts light. We're going to be looking at mirrors and lenses. A mirror and a lens. So a mirror is going to reflect light, and a lens is going to refract light. A concave mirror converges light, and a convex mirror diverges light. When we look at lenses, a concave lens is going to diverge light, and a convex lens is going to converge light. And that's what the pictures up here are showing you, different lenses. So light, or photons, they do not always travel in straight lines. Light does not always go straight from an object to your eye. Light can refract, which means that it is bent as it travels from one medium to another medium. Above, we can see how a lens can magnify an object so that the object appears larger. A prism here can separate white light into its individual components. If I take white light, shine it through this prism, it separates it into the visible light spectrum, or AG-bit, both of which involve the bending or the refraction of light. A magnifying lens can actually create what we call a hotspot. So how can a fire be started using a magnifying lens? Well, a magnifying glass is a converging lens. Light is transmitted through the lens and converges into one point of heat. This is why a magnifying glass can be used to make a hotspot of concentrated light. So if I take sunlight and I put this magnifying lens here, the total amount of heat energy, the total heat and intensity here, traveling through the lens is focused into one point, where it is concentrated into one hotter location. So there are four topics that we can look at in terms of light interacting with a surface. We can say if the surface is, or the material, the substance itself is transparent, it means the photons are going to pass through it. It can be absorbed. Something that is dark or black is going to absorb the light. If something is translucent, it's going to be scattered, where some of it can be transmitted, passing through, but some of it gets reflected back. And lastly, it can reflect completely. And here we can look at, for example, a mirror. It's going to reflect or bounce off of it itself.